Peace world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment podcast video. Getting into some entertainment, discussing my favorite show at the moment, which is Billions. Also might get into a little bit of The Shy. Back season 2. Early in this season, episode 2 came on this weekend. Obviously, we had the return of a monster this week, literally, with Game of Thrones being back. So, very easily I could have just jumped on that and went that route, but honestly, I didn't go back and watch any of the last season to really kind of get up to speed and know what I'm talking about. So I was like, let me just fall back. Plus, one of my favorite podcasts, they do a daily. I'm having a little technical difficulties, I see. They do a daily. Not a daily. They do a weekly recap of the Game of Thrones stuff. So, I might not mess with that right now. What's going on? Oh, there we go. All right. So, I'm just cleaning up some stuff real quick. I'll get into what I want to talk about here in just a second. But like I said, we'll start with Billions, which was another, in my opinion, I can't move this now. All right. I was trying to fix something on there. Obviously, I told y'all I'm still getting used to the live stream and all of the different buttons and hiding stuff and so on and so forth. So, I'm getting off to a little bit of a rough start. My apologies. But, had to make sure the chat was working just in case anybody came in. But yeah, a wonderful, another strong episode from Billions. Why is this thing not working today? Try it one more time, then I'm gonna get to rocking. So I get into the okay, there we go. Just wanted to make sure it was working. So look, two strong weeks in a row, in my opinion, as far as even maybe all-time great episodes. I think it was really that strong. And I mentioned earlier in the year, like after the first episode, I mentioned that I was a little concerned that some of the scandals and the chess playing and whatnot that goes on the show, the dirt that Axe digs up and uses to do his bidding. I thought some of the stuff was getting a little cliche on the first episode, and I had some concerns about where things were going. But wow, they really turned. I thought it was kind of I was seriously concerned. Just some of the stuff I thought maybe I might not even hang. I was seriously thinking whether or not I was going to be in it for the whole season, just because of a couple of things that I thought I was seeing. But getting into episode 2 to this point right here, I mean, the show has rebounded very nicely. It's kind of hit its normal stride. Like I said, in recent weeks, the past 2 weeks, probably 2 of the stronger back-to-back episodes in the 4 seasons. And I want to say that the first one, maybe episode 4, I want to say, was when Gregor got dealt with and sent off. So that was a huge show. and you know, the speech and Rhodes doing his thing. That was a phenomenal show. So and then this week, the centerpiece of this episode was really this boat trip with John, this character John, who was a mentee of Axe's. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but yeah, that's the whole thing that was going on with John is part of the reasons why you tune in. It's an excellent example of why you tune in to Billions and why some of us rock with the show so hard. So I'll get into the synopsis real quick and come back, get into some of my own notes. I'm reading straight off of IMDb, and like I said, this one was named, the title was A Proper Sendoff. It had 132 votes or ratings or rankings, and it's holding right at 9.0. So a very strong episode, but I hope this is the right. Yeah. So it says Chuck begins work in a new position. Obviously, he's the Attorney General now for the state of New York. Axe is surprised by a visitor from his past. Oh, I guess that's the John character. And then Wendy deals with the consequences of Chuck's action. That's referencing Chuck's admission to the public that they're into BDSM, I believe is what they call it. And then Taylor goes after an organization that has a history with Axe. So Taylor didn't have a huge role in this particular episode in some ways, but one thing that I did want to get into, there was a comment on IMDb from a user review that from a user named MP Boylan Jr. -54038. That person said another ace episode. Looks like they gave it 9 stars, and it just says, I am at awe at how sharp the writers are for this show. There isn't a minute wasted in every episode. The dialogue is so smooth, and the actors are perfectly cast, with Chuck getting his power back and Axe showing just how powerful he is made for another tremendous episode. There is no filler or wasted episodes in Billions ever. Loving this season as much as last, and that's saying a lot considering how great last season was. Quite possibly one of the best shows airing on cable at the moment. I would wholeheartedly agree with everything in there. It's not a lot of wasted minute. I've mentioned this before. They don't even waste a lot of time with the intro song. They just have that little 3 to 5 second look at the island. I think that's Manhattan, I believe, and they just jump right into it. So yeah. So some things. A couple of pop references this week. Jules Winfield was one, and Pulp Fiction. There was a Pulp Fiction reference. There was a Fury Road reference. I don't know if I had a favorite analogy this week or pop culture reference. No boxing for the boxing fans out there. No boxing mentioned this week. There was some reference of a Japanese story that Connerty brought up. What else on here? There was a mention. Oh, there was a mention of Right on Time with March Madness. There was a reference of Chris Webb, and then Natalie Wood, who was an actress. That was a discussion between Axe and John on the boat. Some Caesar speech. Like I said, sometimes the dialogue is a little over the top. You don't always understand, and actually I haven't had the opportunity to check out this episode twice, so I'm really just kind of doing this without no safety net. I usually watch the episodes twice just to make sure I know what I'm talking about. What else was there? Didn't know where in the hand. Oh, and then there's a reference of this is a pretty slick analogy that Axe used when he was talking to John about when he was really letting him know what was going on with his company. But let's look into it. You know, like I said, I got some notes here that I hit on. But mainly this episode, Axe kind of finds himself. Let me get back to my screen I was looking at. Yeah, Axe kind of finds himself. Something is going on where his money, people are trying to disassociate themselves from him. And we already know that Taylor, Taylor, his former associate and mentee, left him. And they had issues with how he was running his business. And so I guess when we get started in this one, this kid that is the son of a guy that Axe used to work with, I think that guy might have passed away. It might have been tied to 9/11 or something. But the kid comes to see Axe. This kid right here on the screen up there to his right. He comes to see Axe and he gives Axe a $102 million check back, which was like some money that Axe lent the kid once he got started running his own fund. So Axe, invested in the kid, was one of his major clients, and he comes back. The kid wants to, he just pops up in his office and gives him this check. And, Axe is like, nah, you earning me money. Why would I jump off of a good thing? And so the kid, they slide the check back and forth across the desk a couple times. And basically the kid gives him some line about he didn't want his business to be too big. He didn't want to grow too quickly, and he didn't want to have to live up to expectations that, might be difficult for him to achieve, being that he's a young guy and he's just getting his feet wet in his business. So of course, Axe basically says, okay, no problem, cool. And as soon as the kid walks out of the office, he goes over to Wags and he's like, look, I want you to investigate, snoop around the street and see who else the kid is giving money back to. And of course, Wags goes and finds out that he isn't giving money to anybody else. So, you can't pull a I told you a couple recaps ago that it's hard to pull anything on anybody in this show because everybody is so smart. So Axe quickly puts it together that the kid is trying to distance himself from him because, maybe he's looking into other businesses or other business relationships or trying to bring on other, new money. And honestly, there's the firemen's fund, the firefighters fund is actually, I guess they're listening to pitches because they want to get into a new fund, and that's an opportunity that Taylor takes advantage of in this particular episode, being that she has to replace Grigor and Delov's money being taken from their from under their portfolio or whatever, or the assets that they were managing. So anyway, Axe is ticked off. He's already still trying to get some payback on Taylor. Although we thought there was a truce that was mentioned last week. That didn't really last long, but it is a reason why we didn't see a whole lot of Taylor this week. So anyway, we get into the meat of this episode. Axe finally he decides, I'm not gonna let it go, because that's Axe. So he goes and visits the kid at his office and begs him to. He says, I did a horrible job as a mentor while you were in school. I was running my company and doing what I do, and I just paid for you to go to business school. I failed in really investing real time, with you. So he says, and you're kind of thinking that he's trying to make up for some of the issues that he had with Taylor and how their relationship crumbled. So the kid, you know, he gradually softens up and says, okay, well, you know, I hang out with you. So they decide to go fishing, and it is in wintertime or fall. You know, it's cold. Axe really had on a dope pea coat, but anyway, so they get out to the dock, and I knew something was going on because Axe made it a point to leave his cell phone in the trunk of his Lamborghini SUV. And he tells the kid, you know, hey, if we're going to do this, we should do it right. Go on and throw your phone in here. And the kid is like, okay. So they head out to fish. And the kid is like, you know, kind of reverts back to a much younger, you know, an early preteen or something. And he's at the helm with in kind of the driver's area, the cockpit area, and they're talking, and the kid goes to speak on some New York Yankee stuff, and Axe was like, nah, man, let's dig into it, let's get to it. And so they start, you know, Axe starts telling him some stuff about working with his father, you know, different things that he picked up from his father, business pointers, you know, workday habits, all types of stuff. But then he goes on and tells you know, the way that working with his father made him want to differentiate himself from his father, from the kid's father. And so, you know, how he fashioned himself as his own businessman and his own trader. So they get out to fishing, out there and get to fishing. They pull in a big sea bass or something. And, you know, they have the real father-son or father figure-son relationship. And the kids all, you know, running off adrenaline of the huge fish that they just brought in. And then he's like, they release it, catch and release it. And then, you know, Axe is like, well, look, man, you know, here's a beer. Let's talk. You know, let's talk about the situation with the money. So he gives the kid a couple of times to take. He gives him like one serious message, you know, or lesson. And then it's like, all right, man, so well, what's it going to be? You know, you going to take my money back or what? You know, I brought you out here. I've tried to mend fences, and, you know, I've given you all my best game, and, you know, you're a successful kid, and you know, I might have failed you in some ways, but I did enough that you're now running this successful firm. You going to take my money back or what? And the kid is like, you know, basically no. You know, after they go back and forth a few times, he said, well, he leaves it at like, let me think on it. So then this is when the whole thing really starts to unfold, and in a sense, Axe takes the gloves off. So Axe goes and calls in on the radio and says, hey, I need somebody to come. He act like the boat wouldn't start. And so he calls in on the radio, says, come get me. They said, well, it's going to be a couple hours. We're busy right now. We got a lot of calls out. We can't get to you. And so so then they really get to talking, and then Axe starts talking negatively about the kid's father. And then he starts talking negatively about the kid and being real upfront with the kid. And then the kid fights back a little bit, and you know, he basically admits, he said, hey, you know, you got a bad name, you got a bad rep on the street, and you know, I don't want to operate the way that you do, and you know, I'm not taking your money back. I'm done with it. So you know, now that all the smoke clears, Axe goes back to the boat, clicks together some connector, you know, and the boat starts right up. You know, and he looks at the kid and he's like, basically, you know, you done effed up, right? So they get back to the port, and they're back at they offer the boat, and they go back over to the Lamborghini to Axe's car, and Axe is like, all right, kid, you know, I knew you didn't know. I knew, even though you know what you're doing, You don't know the game. And I knew that because he said you didn't know where the F you were. He said, I realized you didn't know where the F you were in the hand. You didn't know what was going on this whole time. So check your phone. And the kid starts looking through his phone, and he's got all these messages. Stuff is blowing up back at the office, basically. And so what was going on the whole time, and something that we didn't know what was happening in the office back at Axe Capital. They had like a little war room set up. Axe actually had 4 or 5 of his best traders reaching out to the kids, the major stakeholders in the fund, and they were bad-mouthing the kid and actually finding ways to persuade those people to come over to Axe Capital and let him manage their money. So the kid left on this boat, on this fishing trip, with his book, I believe is what they refer to it, with his book totaling about $740 million or something that they were handling. By the time he got done, or by the time Axe got done, they had whittled that down to about, they had taken probably 70 to 80% of what he was managing. So, yeah, the kid was holding on to like $50-something million. And Axe was like, that's just the lesson you learn. And the kid said, he had told him he didn't want to be too big. And so Axe said, well, I think his line was something, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, you said you wanted to be small. So how's it feel to be, how's it feel to get what you wanted? And so that was just, like I said, I'm not doing the whole play. I'm not doing it any justice. I just realized I was quite further along in this stream than I wanted to be. But it was just Axe at his best, manipulating people, outthinking people, calculating, paying people back, basically, running things with the iron fist. So, like I said, that was really the standout part of the episode. Quickly, Chuck, he goes to work, and Axe comes out and says that he wants Taylor in a cell. That's the kind of revenge that he wants. He wants them in a cell, which I didn't know he really, I didn't know where that came from, but that's what he told, that's what he wanted as payback for helping Chuck get into office. Chuck, of course, wants to do his own bidding, but as soon as he gets to work, Connerty is there at his office, and something has gone on. They've leaned on the governor to take away the powers of Chuck. So Chuck, when he went to go send some of his people out to get some dirt on Taylor, they couldn't even get approved or to get some records. So they couldn't do, he just was powerless. So of course, within about 5 minutes, Chuck goes and has his people dig up some other stuff, and his dad, he actually meets with his dad. And of course, Chuck Sr. is where things always unravel. For any progress that Chuck might have, his dad is always doing something to making, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, messing around with Chuck Sr. But Chuck Sr. was like, hey, you need to show how powerful you are. You need to do something over the top. You need to show how mighty you need to show some might. So once Chuck goes and gets his power restored by manipulating and digging up all this dirt on all of the state senators from the state of New York, it's a very dope scene. The other dope scene from this week, they're actually at the funeral for Blackjack Foley, who was the guy who was helping Chuck in his political aspirations last year, who turned on Chuck. He passed away last episode, so they were having his funeral, and all of these state senate folks are, of course, in attendance, and Chuck walks up before the governor is getting ready to go out and eulogize Blackjack Foley, and Chuck says, hey, if you just sign this right here, I'm going to take care of a lot of stuff. I'm gonna get back to work, and whatever the feds had on you, don't worry about it, because I'm getting ready to start taking some heads. So the governor signs off on, the paperwork, giving Chuck leeway to go do, or latitude to go do what he wants to do as AG. And so the governor was getting ready to go out to the microphone in this speech he was all nervous about delivering, and Chuck pushes him in his chest and was like, I'll take care of this. So Chuck goes out there and delivers his second over-the-top speech, grand speech, for the second week in a row. And by the end of it, his legal team comes in and starts arresting some of the different state senators for all the dirt that he dug up on these people. So that was kind of the two major situations this week. Was Axe teaching this young lion a lesson, and then Chuck Rhodes kind of sending the message that he was back in power. And him and Connerty in his old U.S. attorney office with Sacker, it's a lot of tension there, but I'll come back to that in a second. The other thing, like I said, Taylor Capital, or Taylor Mason Capital, kind of quietly for them. One thing I will notice is that they have, of course, this is like the new shop. They have a certain, decor and a certain culture that they're establishing over there. So it's like, some people of color in key positions. Taylor's right-hand woman, she's went and hired an investor relation, I think it's called investor relations specialist, who is supposed to go out and line up clients for Taylor to pitch. So this sister shows up, and they need to replace the money, the $3 billion or whatever it was that Andalov left, had to, that's taken away with him going back to Russia. And the sister does her thing and gets Taylor in front of the firefighter fund that I mentioned earlier, so that they can try to bring them in as new money. And of course, Taylor smashes it. There was some concern that their association with Axe Capital would be a problem, and that's why Taylor Mason Capital was only given 10 minutes to do their pitch, while everybody else was getting 30 minutes. But of course, Taylor kills it. They secure the money, and they go back and have this conversation. I don't know what the hell Taylor and her dad are talking about. I know big picture what's going on with them, but whatever he's working on, this product or whatever that he's designing, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it. And then the closer for this episode is the fact that Chuck Rhodes Sr. is impatient and is worried about his legacy. So he goes and does some maneuvering to get some permits. I thought it was building permits or something to get this project started. That's like some ocean, some kind of something along the coastline, where he wants to start a build. He wants to build something that's going to take like $30 million. And so at the end of it, he goes and squeezes or jams up somebody to get these permits expedited. And this is something that triggers the U.S. Attorney's Office. Excuse me. This is something that Sacker and Connerty is something on their radar that they're monitoring. So once they see these two permits go through to the front of the line, they go and check into the person who approved it. That person rolls over and lets them know that, here's what happened. Here's the corruption that took place or whatever. So at the end of the episode, after having a big day with the show of power at Black Jack Foley's funeral, and locking all of these people up and kind of reestablishing himself as a major player in the state of New York in the political arena. He meets his dad out there at the location or the build site where he wants to start this project. And of course, Sacker and Connerty, I believe, are in a van with the FBI. They have that area under surveillance. And now they have proof that, they have probable cause probably to start investigating Chuck and Chuck Sr. So that's kind of what we went through in episode 5. Like I said, it was one of the two weeks in a row, just very strong episodes. The last thing was Wendy. You know, her thing with she was still very bitter and very displeased with Chuck on coming out and letting everybody know, and she thinks that her name is sullied, her reputation. She's hiding. She's hiding out and wants to. She shows up early to work and doesn't turn the lights on in her office because now she feels like, you know, she's undermined as being the doctor or the therapist for all of these alphas in the office. And how can she sit down and lead these people and rebuild them and put them together? And then they all are looking at her knowing that it's some crazy stuff going on in their marriage and, in their home with her and Chuck. And so at the beginning in this pizza scene right there where they're eating this pizza, the two couples, Axe and Rebecca Cantu, and then the Rhodes, Axe's girlfriend tells Wendy, like, how could you be concerned with the people, with everyday people out here, as effed up as their lives are? Like, they're only going to be focusing on you for about a week, or 48 hours or something. So you might as well get over this. And so quickly, or, soon after, Wendy kind of reemerges and she Googles herself a couple times to see what the word is out there on her, and then basically she gets over it and even breaks down and gives Taylor a call, because Taylor called her in the previous episode once she was embarrassed by Chuck's admission about the sadomasochism stuff. So that's that. Nobody's made it into the live stream. Like I said, I know I went terribly long on getting that out there. But like I said, just a dope episode. Is one of the reasons why, I rock with the show. And, it just sets up the next, the second half of the season. I'm not going to say a whole lot about The Chi. It's probably a bad idea to even try to do those two, combining them together. Two different audiences. They are both Showtime properties. And, again, like I said last week, man, it's not a lot of uplifting and bright moments in The Chi. I mean, it was like 5 or 6 scenes in a row this week, I think, where at the end of the scene, that particular scene, something bad happened for somebody. And I didn't even take any notes on this one, but obviously, Reg, who is now taking over the streets in the absence of his boss, Trice, he's actually brought to the guy, who runs the organization behind the scenes. And he's introduced to the fact that they owe tribute, on the first of every month, or, every month there's a tribute that has to be paid up. The guy lets him know that he wasn't pleased with how things transpired. The violence out on the street is bad for business. And, you can't just be out here, making decisions and erasing or getting rid of people without the proper clearance and whatnot. So, and then another thing that we learned is that Q based on how he handled the situation, he was sent away again. So I think his name is Steven. I want to say Steven Miller. Used to be the sergeant or whatever on what was that, 21 Jump Street back in the day. But he's gone, and so we don't know if we'll see him this season. So Ronnie does some things, trying to figure out what happened to his mother, his grandmother. He wants to get out of jail, and he does something showing that he has a little bit of game. He goes and actually impresses this white power group in the county, which is kind of odd because I don't even know if the county has these types of prisoners or inmates in it. These more look like prison inmates versus the county, but I'm not familiar with the Department of Corrections in Illinois, or Chicago. So who am I to sit here and question it? But he basically goes and figures out how to make, or he shows how to make this prison wine called Pmnm, and has a better recipe than what the white power and anybody else in the jail has. So he uses that as leverage to be put on with this high-powered attorney who can probably get him off on this murder charge that he admitted to last season with killing Coogie. So that's what's going on with that. There's also this new female detective, this sister that's on there. That's a very interesting character. She's investigating the home invasion of Ronnie's grandmother, and she's interacting with Cruz a little bit. Cruz re-enters the show, and then basically Emmett is spending some time with his dad, and even goes and talks with his mom. But obviously, Emmett is trying to figure out, why because his dad now has these rules about the family must eat dinner at 7 o'clock as a family, or you can't live here. And Emmett sits down to have dinner with them, and I think his dad's current woman, and then 2 other women that he had kids with. And one of their husbands or boyfriends is there, and it's just this room full of a table full of adults eating dinner together and having a good time. And Emmett is a little pissed off because he feels like his mother got the a-hole version of his dad, and now he's in here being father of the year with all of these other kids. And where was that back when? So they have a heart-to-heart situation or a man-to-man discussion to kind of try to help with the reconciliation that's going on there with Emmett and his father. And then Brandon is doing what Brandon is, he's constantly trying to get on his feet, but his girlfriend has a good deal going on with managing or selling some real estate property. She lands a very lucrative client to handle something. She has some kind of property, I guess, with multiple units or something. So all in all, it was a pretty good episode for The Chi. I think one thing that's always, where the show has always kind of struggled, is the street activity has never really been that well defined. We still don't know what the hell, Reg and his crew really do. Excuse me, they don't really do that too well, how they break that out, but they do get the money. They do raise the money. They owe 100 bands to like the CEO type guy of the 63 Street, whatever the gang's name is. So what else is going on the show? I want to say that was pretty much it. Like I said, all in all, it was a pretty solid episode. it'll be interesting to see what goes on with this investigation with the new detective that's in play. I want to say that's pretty much it. Emmett, who just works at Sonny's chicken joint, looks like he might have a situation to help out Amir at the corner store with selling some weave. Might be the way for him to finally start getting some extra money, some decent money flowing, because Amir has a hookup to bring this hair in from the Middle East, wherever he's from. And they can Emmett is all about market it right, get some proper packaging, and you in here sitting in here with the gold mine with this hair weave. We can do hair weave better than we did when we were rocking with the sneakers last year when Emmett messed that up, if you remember that. So like I said, all in all, pretty strong episode for the Shy. Sets up a couple of things. Kevin has decided, so Ronnie, this attorney that he has, which is funny because it was a white power group that put him in contact with this lawyer, and the lawyer is actually this black woman who knows all the rules, or how to bend all the rules, and is just notorious for getting dudes freed or off of beaten cases. And so it looks like she's gonna have a way to get Ronnie off so that he can get back out to the streets to see what's going on with his mom. And then on the other hand, Cruz spent the whole episode trying to get Kevin to testify, and to testify to the statement that he gave about what happened with Coogie and Ronnie when Coogie was fatally shot during their argument or confrontation. So Kevin decides that despite the situation with the community's view on snitching, despite all of that, he's gonna go ahead and take the stand. So of course he's endangering his life and anyone in his family. And then although it's just Ronnie that he's telling on, but anyway, you just can't be a snitch in general. There could be some repercussions for that. But he's made up his mind that that's how he wants to do it. And then I think by the end of the episode, Brandon finds out that the situation that he thought he was past with his brother's killer, being locked up and going away for a while, now this man might be free. So that could bring those two back into each other, have those two on a collision. And that's pretty much it. So look, I know I didn't put this together too smoothly today. Didn't really mean to be on here for 45 minutes, but and I didn't even get the live stream. It's kind of tough to do that Sunday night live stream after Billions goes off, and then with Game of Thrones on, The Shy on. It's kind of logistically, that's just gonna be a tough turnaround. And then last night, I just had some stuff going on. So anyway, man, like I said, I'm not really. It is what it is. I'm gonna come on here and talk about what I want to talk about, and it's out there. Once I do it, it's out there. So again, feel free to leave any comments if you're rocking with either of these shows, and you have any theories or things that I missed, or storylines, or different arcs that you really appreciate, or are really standout subjects or topics to you. I'm down to talk about all of it. So feel free to leave a comment, and I definitely respond. Other than that, let me get on out of here. You know how I always end the podcast. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And I'm out.